Hi there, this is the first part for the 14th lecture on Life and Destiny stage presented by Sumio Umekawa with my old picture. This is when we celebrated 7th year of my daughter. The 14th lecture investigating psychology or superstition in which we could possibly think about the alliance with the Occident in Japan and in China is consisted of 3 movies as usual. First movie will deal with something called Reijutsu and hypnosis, while the second one will study about Reigaku and Reigakkai. And the final third one, we will investigate the shift from Reigaku to something called Sengaku or Xinshui. In this first part, in which we will deal with Reijutsu and hypnosis, I have to introduce you the founder of Reigaku, Hirata Atsutane, first. Then we will move on to the relation between Reigaku and newly developed religion as well as science and psychology. Finally, I will introduce you things and people around Reigaku. As many of you may know, Hirata Atsutane is one of the 4 great scholars on Kokugaku, the study on Japan, together with Kada no Azumamaro, Kamo no Mabuchi, and Motori Norinaga. So he was basically interested in the identity of Japan by differentiation from Buddhism, which had been widely accepted and had actually become a kind of root for Japanese and Christianity. He was also known as the promoter of Fukko Shinto, which regards Ame no Minakanushi no Kami as the top deity instead of Amaterasu. But he was also the pioneer of later Reigaku movement. His works considered to be related with Reigaku are, for instance, Unique Records of the World of Transcendent, published in 1822, as well as the record of the resurrection of Katsugoro in the following year, 1823. As we will return to the former, let me quickly tell you what the latter was. The latter article is a record of interview with a man who had died but revived. Anyway, we can see Atsutane had also worked on things which had nothing to do with Japanese identity. Such works of his, especially those on research on something strange or peculiar, were succeeded by Yanagida Kunio and Origuchi Nobuo to become folkloristic study. However, his attitude towards something strange or peculiar became the foundation of something called Reigaku movement as well. はい、で一方で、そうした不可思議なこと、怪異、奇異なことを研究しようという姿勢ですね。これが後の霊学、ないしは霊学運動と呼ばれるものの基盤になっていきます。なので、その平田篤胤が草分けだということになるわけです。Reigaku can be summarized as an attempt to explain something strange or peculiar, or probably something unexplainable from logical and scientific point of view. In spite of the seriousness of each people involved in Reigaku, logic and scientificity depends on periods. The point is, they were trying to be logical and scientific as much as possible. For instance, Atsutane's records on the world of transcendent was that of his interviews to a boy called Torakichi, who had been spirited away. His return surprised other people, so he became very popular, and but Atsutane was interested in that Torakichi claimed he had returned from Tengu world. In order to check if Torakichi was lying or not, Atsutane let Torakichi stay and live with him. Moreover, He did some demonstrational experiments to check what Torakichi told him was possible or not. Probably the best instance should be a gun of the Tengu world. Torakichi told Atsutane that a gun in the Tengu world was much more powerful than that was used in the human world, and he knew how to make it. So Atsutane invited in an able craftsman specialized in gun making and let the craftsman create a gun in accordance with Torakichi's supervision. The craftsman, convinced that he had never created a gun in Torakichi's manner, he was sure no one in Japan should know the method, and what was more, he suggested the gun created in accordance with Torakichi's supervision would be much more powerful than that used by Westerners. Under these circumstances, Atsutane approved what Torakichi told him was true, and Torakichi had been in Tengu world, where the knowledge and technology were far more developed than human world. The Reigaku movement as a dynamism of the attempt to explain something unexplainable logically and scientifically roughly started from the end of Edo and continued to early Showa. And there were two influential fields which took main roles in and led the dynamism. One was a newly developed religion, and the other was scientific, psychological, and medical studies. People around these two fields were greatly involved in Reigaku movements, and because of them, Reigaku movements became a big wave in Japanese society. But why people in these two fields were interested in explaining something unexplainable? For this question, the theory of relativity by Einstein is said to be related. His theory was proposed in 1905, which was the year when Japan made a Treaty of Portsmouth. Therefore, people in the middle of Reigaku movements were actually the contemporaries of Einstein. In his theory, Einstein, he included something called uncertainty principle. As I am not a scientific person at all, I can't explain what the uncertainty principle is for you, but this particular principle is said to have inspired and stimulated people in newly developed religions and science and medical people to jump into Reigaku movement. This particular principle sounded to people around religion, especially newly developed religion in which spiritual phenomena are usually involved. Yes, spiritual things exist. Einstein proved it. The same principle sounded to those around science as well as medicine. Yes, there should be scientific proof or proof for mysterious things. If Einstein could do, I can find it too. Okay, bearing in mind that Einstein's famous theory was opened to the public in 1905, let's see the people around Reigaku. Of course, not all of them, but important or influential ones. As Reigaku movement were mixed up with religion, scientific things, and medical things, we start from checking religious one. In 1883, about 60 years later than Atsutane's record on Torakichi, Honda Chikazu compiled Shinden Hisho, which became the foundation for Honda method of reposing and invocating, which greatly influenced on later religious Reigaku movement. About 10 years later than that, in 1892, Omotokyo was founded by Deguchi Nao, one of the newly developed religion. 6 years later, however, Omotokyo started to be controlled by Deguchi Onisaburo, a stepson of Nao and husband of Nao's daughter. After Onisaburo became an influential figure, Omotokyo started expanding. In 1916, Tairei-do was founded by Tanaka Morihei. Omotokyo as well as Taihei-do are regarded as newly developed religion of Shinto stream. In 1919, Tomokiyo Yoshisane compiled theory and application of Honda method. Tomokiyo had been a member of Omotokyo and greatly influenced by Onisaburo, but he started to doubt Onisaburo and left Omotokyo. Later, he studied under the disciple of Honda Chikatsu and learned Honda method of reposing and evocation. Tomokiyo visited Chikatsu's disciples as much as possible and compiled this particular article, which was actually the first writings precisely explaining Honda method. As invocation of deity was one of the most important characteristics in most newly developed religious groups, that the detailed method became open to the public was very important for later Reigaku people. In this sense, Tomokiyo is one of the key persons in Reigaku dynamism. In 1920, Ueshiba Juku was founded by Ueshiba Morihei. Ueshiba was a master of Japanese martial art, and therefore Ueshiba Juku was a place where Ueshiba taught martial art, which later became Aikido. Although many of you may think martial art is nothing to do with newly developed religion, but Ueshiba was actually recommended to open the martial art dojo by Onisaburo of Omotokyo. In 1927, Tomokiyo founded Shinto Tenkokyo, which is sometimes regarded as a secret community like Illuminati rather than newly developed religious group. In the following year, in 1928, Matsumoto Dobetsu, another key person in Reigaku dynamism, compiled Reigaku Koza, which is still read by many people who are interested in Reigaku or modern spiritual phenomena. Okay, in 1922, Usui Kameo founded Usui Reiki Healing Institute. Reiki was actually exported to the Western countries where it became very popular. And around 20 years ago, Reiki re-imported to Japan as a result. In 1923, study on Shinrei Kagaku Institute was founded by Asano Wasaburo, who is another key person of Reigaku movement. Just like Tomokiyo, Asano, who was a professor of Tokyo University, like Fukurai, had been a member of Omotokyo and gained great trust from Onisaburo. But after he had learned Honda method of invocation, he left the group and founded his own rather academic institute. In 1926, Noguchi Haruya opened a dojo. What he taught in this dojo became the foundation for later Noguchi Seitai. So, as for the medical field, under these circumstances, modern alternative medicine such as Seitai, Shiatsu, and Reijutsu emerged. As for more academic field, the underlying foundation was mesmerism, a kind of hypnosis psychology. The term mesmerism was introduced to Japan in 1871, but at the time of Fukurai, around the early 20th century, hypnosis psychology was one of the most developed fields in medical science, and Fukurai was one of the leading scholars on that topic. During Fukurai's period, the field was called Hentai Shinrigaku, which didn't indicate the mind of wrecked or weird. Anyway, hypnosis psychology and dynamism of Reigaku was, in a sense, diverged into the study on psychology or super psychology and that on spiritualism. For instance, Fukurai moved towards super psychology, whereas Asano did to the spiritualism. Diversion, or some would say it was an integration of psychology and spiritualism, happened not only in Japan, but it was rather an international tendency. For instance, the Third International Congress on Spiritualism was held at London in 1928, as spiritualism was quite popular in England. And this particular congress was hosted by Arthur Conan Doyle, the famous novelist of Sherlock Holmes. He was at the time the top of British Institute of Spiritualism. By the way, for this congress, Fukurai and Asano attended as representatives of Japan. So this is the end of the first part of the 14th movie, so see you in the second part of the movie.